Members, good afternoon. Welcome to today's meeting. This is the appointed time and we have a quorum. So I call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda, information paper issued since the last meeting. So that's item 1. The Secretariat has not issued any information paper. Item 2, items for discussion at the next meeting. The regular meeting of the panel is scheduled for the 16th of June, Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. next time. The administration has proposed to discuss 2 items. 1. Legislative proposal for facilitating digitalization of business-to-business trade documents. And 2. Promotion of new industrialization development in Hong Kong. Members, any views on the 2 proposed items? No? All right. So these will be the items discussed next time. Item 3. Progress on developing Hong Kong into regional IP trading center. Let me welcome the administration to our meeting. We are joined by Dr. Bernard Chan, Mr. Andy Lam, Mr. Lee, Mr. David Wong, and the team. So, welcome. Members, if you want to speak, please press the request to speak button. This item involves a legislative proposal, so all legislative members have been invited to take part in the discussion of this item. So I see the administration team is ready. Without further ado, I will invite Dr. Bernard Chan to walk us through the paper. All right, good afternoon, Chairman members. The 15th five-year plan categorically provides support for Hong Kong's development into a regional IP center. The government has also rolled out various measures in recent years in a targeted manner so that in a multi-pronged approach, we can consolidate Hong Kong's status as an IP trading hub. In April 2024, we briefed the panel on existing measures implemented by the government. And since then, we have taken forward some new policies and measures on 3 fronts, and that is promoting IP trading, financing, enhancing human capital, and enhancing external promotion. On promoting IP trading and financing, the IP financing sandbox was launched in the end of 2025 together with the Hong Kong MA, and under a risk-controlled environment, the sandbox allowed pilot and participating banks and enterprises to try the new IP financing arrangements. The Hong Kong Technology and Innovation Support Center was also commissioned in the end of last year. It's now been fully commissioned. It focuses on providing IP advisory services to SMEs. And in February, we had the panel support in the third quarter of this year. We're going to roll out a pilot patent valuation support on human capital. We plan to kickstart a pilot scheme that will run for 2 years to establish the IP Academy, Intellectual Property Academy, so as to provide systematic and recognized training for practitioners on IP trading and commercialization of IPs and service providers for enterprises and service providers. Now, in this month and in July, we are going to roll out in-depth courses to enhance the knowledge of practitioners from various sectors. On external promotion, we maintain liaison with local, mainland, and overseas IP organizations and institutions to promote IP trading and commercialization. We work very closely with the mainland counterpart in particular in promoting IP protection and management as well as trading. We also encourage Greater Bay Area enterprises to use our professional services. In fact, in the second quarter of this year, we are actively preparing for this event, which will provide IP business matching services. And the government will continue to work with the Hong Kong TDC in holding the BIP Asia platform, which is an annual event. We will explore with business leaders and and experts various IP topics and the latest market developments so as to consolidate Hong Kong's status as an IP trading hub. In order to lower the cost of IP trading, we are going to roll out new tax deduction measures related to purchase of IP or the rights to use IP. At present, capital expenditure incurred on the purchase of patent rights, rights to know-how, and other 6 specified IP rights is tax deductible. And having reviewed the relevant arrangements, we plan to amend the Inland Revenue Ordinance to suitably broaden the scope of relevant profits tax deductions so as to lower the cost of transactions and further promote the development of IP trading. In the end of January, we started a 2-month consultation, and we sought feedback from the sector on the enhanced legislative proposal. Now, there are 3 highlights. First, we allow tax deduction of the cost of purchasing certain IPs from associates. This will encourage multinational corporations to focus their IP management efforts in Hong Kong, and we will also allow domestic intra-group transfer of IP rights. This will bring in more business activities, and this will drive the demand for professional services. By allowing and encouraging domestic intra-group transfer of IP, we will promote commercialization of IP, and this will further promote the use, creation, and research development of IP. Next, we allow tax deduction for upfront license fees for the right to use IP in a licensing arrangement. Now, IP involves heavy investment, and it's common to adopt the upfront license fee payment approach. To further promote the development of IP and commercialization, we will allow tax deduction for upfront license fees for the right to use IP. The third point is to allow tax deduction of the purchase cost of IPs used by licensee outside of Hong Kong. Under the FSIE mechanism or regime, originally it's tax deductible. In 2020, it is taxable. In 2023, we introduced the FSIE regime. We considered the views of the sector, and we're going to amend the IRO to the effect that for the capital expenditure incurred for the purchase of IPs used by licensee outside of Hong Kong, tax deduction will be allowed. These 3 legislative proposals will apply to enterprises that have purchased IP or the rights to use IP since the 1st of April 2026. With the members' support, our goal is to table the bill into the Council within 2026. Now, Chairman, the administration will continue to take forward the various initiatives which are intertwined with the support of our country for Hong Kong to consolidate its status as an international IP trading hub. We will continue to promote IP financing activities so as to inject new impetus in our economy. Thank you, Chair. Thank you. There are 9 members waiting to speak. I'll give each member 4 minutes. Let me read out the names, starting with Ray Wong, Chilap Wai, Thomas So, Webster Ng, Alan Chen, Tommy Zhang, Michael Ngai, Hong Kam In, Peter Shou, and Dennis Leung. Ray Wong will kick off, please. 4 minutes. Thank you, Chair. In light of the industrial development of Greater Bay Area, we need to improve the arrangements under Section 16 of the IRO, according to paragraphs 28 to 30. For the purchase of IPs used by licensee outside Hong Kong under special circumstances, originally the cost would be tax deductible. Now, on a pro rata basis, for the cost of purchase of certain IP, the tax deduction should be allowed as long as it's on a proportionate basis. But the sector is concerned that there is a lack of detail and clarity as to how the tax deduction will be calculated. And this will, coupled with market uncertainties, impact on the sentiment to develop IP in Hong Kong. Now, there is also one major concern not yet addressed, and that is many Hong Kong enterprises have adopted a cross-boundary industry chain approach with the manufacturing process taking place in the Greater Bay Area. And it's very common for the IPs to be used or authorized to be used across the boundary. However, under the current IRO, for the capital expenditure involved in the purchase of IP by a mainland processing base, the Hong Kong enterprise will not enjoy deduction to the full. So the current design is not tailor-made for this new mode of industrial development. So in light of the development opportunities in the Greater Bay Area, in order to further give play to the synergistic development, will the government consider rolling out another exemption arrangement under Section 16 so that for the final product, if the profit is to be shared between the two places under the tax regime, will there be tax deductions allowed on the Hong Kong side for the purchase of or use of IP as part of the capital expenditure? Thank you, Chair. Let me give a brief response and then I will invite the Commissioner to give a response. In order to facilitate Hong Kong enterprises, we have rolled out a lot of supporting measures. For example, we provide facilitation for enterprises in the two places to apply for the use of IP. We also have advisory service and also we strive to expedite the processing of applications. In fact, starting from 2023, we have a green channel. We have set up a green channel for the application of patents. Now, about Mr. Ray Wong's suggestion, I will give the floor to the Commissioner to supplement. Hong Kong has a simple tax regime, and that is we have territorial source principle, under which profits sourced in Hong Kong will be chargeable to profits tax and not otherwise. In accordance with the tax symmetry principle, no deduction is allowed for expenditure incurred in the production of offshore profits. In other words, the member mentioned processing taking place elsewhere, and the IP rights will be used by the mainland and manufacturer. So for the profits generated by the sale of the final product, according to the principle of tax symmetry, it's kind of an offshore profit. So on this basis, the acquisition of IP rights or the cost of acquisition will not be eligible for tax deduction. However, we are going to relax the requirement under 16 EC 4B as long as the IP income is chargeable to profits tax under the FSIE regime, and that deduction will be allowed on a proportionate basis, because under the FSIE regime, not all IP income is taxable. In English, we call it the nexus approach. And by taking this nexus approach, we calculate the portion chargeable to profits tax. Say, if you have $100 of IP income under the nexus approach, then you have $10 eligible for deduction. That means for the remaining $90, this will be chargeable to profits tax. And the same applies for the cost of acquiring IP rights. Tax deduction will be allowed on a proportionate basis. Mr. Chilat Wai. Thank you, Chair. Two questions. First, paragraph 15. $52 million have been earmarked by the government to set up an intellectual property academy. This will be operated by the Vocational Training Council. I'd like to have more details. For example, what is the estimated cost of setup and operation? What is the target number of candidates to be trained? And according to paragraph 23, the IRO will be amended. A main purpose test will be introduced to tackle tax evasion. However, main purpose test is a subjective test. Will it be easy for the IRD to make this assessment? Will multinational corporations be deterred? Will the government consider, for example, setting up a pre-assessment mechanism so that before major trading activities that the enterprises concerned can confirm the eligibility with the IRD?
Thank you. On The main purpose test. This test is widely adopted in Hong Kong for various tax concession schemes and tax deduction schemes. Officers have experience in running such a scheme. On the question about the IP Academy, the government has set aside $52 million to support the establishment of the institution and also to support the expenses for the first 2 years, and that would mean covering the wages, teaching expenses, information portal, course development, design, accreditation, publicity, and promotion, as well as other operational and administrative expenses. This academy will use the venue of the Vocational Training Council. This means we will not have to build another structure just for the academy. On the staffing, we will work with the VTC on the work plan and the specific details. We will finalize the staffing arrangement on the target audience of the academy. As I said in my opening remarks, the target is professionals across industries, and that includes people from INT, creative and cultural industries, trade and commerce, as well as other professions. Local research outfits, tech startups, SMEs. The bosses of those SMEs can also be part of the target audience of the IP Academy. Thank you. Any follow-up? No? Dr. Thomaso. Thank you. The trading of intellectual property covers a wide range of areas. Creation, identification, protecting, management, transfer, commercialization, all these areas are covered. Now, for the 14th and 15th five-year plans, Hong Kong has to become a regional IP trading center. Paragraph 31 discusses the way forward, but it is silent on what Hong Kong can expect in terms of outcomes and results under the 15th five-year plan. So can the government give us more details on this? So first, during the 14th five-year plan, what have we achieved and what quantifiable results have we seen? Second, by the end of the 15th five-year plan, meaning 2030, what will our performance indicators be like? And how does Hong Kong compare with other regional rivals? What unique edge do we have? How will we work with the rest of the GBA on the convergence of rules to attract mainland and overseas enterprises for intellectual property rights? So I would like a brief reply from the Undersecretary, and then can I also get a detailed written reply after the meeting, Undersecretary? Thank you. The global economy is quickly pivoting to a model focused on innovation. Intellectual property is key to the competitiveness of businesses and industries. That's why our country's two recent five-year plans focus on IP. Hong Kong is a bridge between the mainland and the world. We have a key role to play on commercializing IP for businesses. Businesses struggle with certain areas. First, financing, a shortage of talent, and also high costs. These problems hold back the I&T sector and also the culture and creative industries. To overcome these challenges, the Commerce and Economic Development Bureau and the Intellectual Property Department have been improving the IP ecosystem. So what we do is we improve the taxation system, we improve the financing channels, we work on talent, we help businesses go global. This is our multi-pronged approach to improve the creation, protection, and use of IP across the board. In recent years, we have set up a platform for IP professionals to support mainland and local businesses in going global. After this meeting, we will submit a detailed report to Dr. So. That report will set out our work. So we have different support platforms, talent training, tax breaks, IP financing. We have done much across these areas, and our work will continue. Thank you. Dr. Webster. This is about intellectual property. I support the work. I want to say something about the industry. Paragraph 26, there's a presumption, a deeming provision. The industry thinks this is unnecessary. This paragraph cited the Patrick Cox case. Now we have 15B, 15BA, 61A. Those are provisions against tax evasion. But here, the Patrick Cox case is cited, which is about tax evasion. And then with the existing provisions, that should be enough to combat tax evasion. Here, the paper proposes a deeming provision. I have a concern. This provision will deter investment. An unduly rigid approach will deter overseas IP rights. And then paragraph 35, a proportionate deduction. It was like a section 39E deduction. It was like you're going to get half deduction. The paper says it's proportionate. The FSIE was brought in 2023, so tax was charged on certain income. Can we have greater clarity from the IRD about how the deduction will work? Would this be a DIPN, or will there be a provision added to the principal legislation? Now, on the main purpose test, 61A, it's the same story. It's very clear. The main purpose test is not necessary, given that it may deter businesses. Now, paragraph 27, it's about the licensing fees. Requiring a detailed breakdown for the tax deduction will make things operationally difficult for businesses, and they will simply pass on Hong Kong, and that goes against attracting investments. So these are my points. Under Secretary, the Inland Revenue Department can take the questions. For businesses operating in Hong Kong, when they license their IP rights to someone else, the accrued licensing income are taxable under Section 14, subsection 1 of the IRO. A business runs a licensed operation and then earns income. This income may be collected annually or as a lump sum arrangement at the beginning of the licensing arrangement. That counts as operating income. Under the IRO, that income is taxable. The deeming provision does not expand the scope of taxable income. It's just like rent collecting companies. If they hold many properties, they enter into longer-term tenancy agreements, say over 5 years. They can charge the rent in one go for 5 years, or they can collect the rent in installments. Either way, the taxation remains unaffected. So in this upfront licensing income, the same principle applies. It's operating income. We propose to add a deeming provision to enhance tax certainty. That's to avoid future disputes. On the second point, proportionate tax deduction. Under the FSIE regime, not all IP income is taxable. Now, under the nexus approach, when some portion of the IP income is not taxable, so the procurement cost for that IP will also not qualify for tax deduction accordingly. We have a provision saying that when the IP is partly for producing a chargeable profit and partly used for another profit, that deduction will be scaled back proportionately. On the third point, the main purpose test. The main purpose test is already found in the existing IRO. This is an objective test. We look at the facts of each case. The main purpose test is not a tool to hinder normal commercial transactions. The tool comes in when there are abnormal transactions, when transactions are made for tax evasion purposes. That's when the main purpose test comes in for us to reject the claim. On the upfront licensing fee, the deduction will take place based on the term of the contract. Normal taxpayers know how to calculate the deduction for the upfront licensing fee. So that's all for me. Chairman, some of my questions went unanswered. I suggest that we take out the provision in paragraph 26C. Maybe you can follow up in your second round. Mr. Alan Chan. I support the government's effort to turn Hong Kong into a regional intellectual property trading center. There's also a proposal to expand the tax deduction for IP rights, especially for transfer of IP rights through transactions with associates. Now, I would like some further details on a few points. First, overall success. Both the 15th and the 15th five-year plan support Hong Kong's effort to become an IP trading center. Can the government provide information on the scale of transactions, the amount of financing, and how many IP rights have you brought in? The Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Hong Kong INT clusters comes first globally. What's Hong Kong's positioning in this cluster? What's our indispensable role in the cluster? How do we make sure we're not sidelined by Guangzhou and Shenzhen? Now, on the tax deduction. So this will be about the tax deduction for transactions with associates, and then buying IP rights from overseas will also qualify for deduction. How much tax revenue are we expecting to forego? So what's the economic boost we're looking at? Once we relax the rules for trading with associates, how do we guard against tax evasion from multinational companies? How do we make sure those multinationals do not cycle through IP rights as a way to evade tax? What will be the criteria for enforcement? When will we announce the guidelines? Will we favor the large multinational corporations? How many small and medium enterprises will benefit? Now, on cross-boundary arrangements, separate applications on the mainland are still needed for original patent grant in Hong Kong. When can we achieve reciprocal recognition of original patent grant with the mainland? How do we strengthen Hong Kong's role as a way for IP rights to go global? So these are my questions.
Secretary, I will answer the first and the third question. For the second question, I'll give the floor to the IRD. About Hong Kong's advantages or unique strengths, as you know, we have very robust system. We practice the common law. For example, we are very predictable, and we have high execution capacity that is globally acclaimed. We enjoy geographical advantages. We are at the strategic positioning. We have a capable government and efficient market. We also have a full chain of up, mid, and downstream to serve our customers. We also have very robust system to support IP trading, patent grants, creation of IP, research, financing, etc. We also have the relevant talents. In fact, in 2023, a study was conducted on how much IP-intensive sectors contribute to our economy. And according to the report, these sectors and industries contributed up to 32% of our GDP. And the practitioners accounted for 29.1%, close to 30% of the workforce. And in the past few years, as mentioned by the member, we rolled out measures to support, say, the OPG system, the patent box tax incentive, and in rolling out these measures, we also mount external publicity to attract I&T enterprises and multinational corporations to set up presence in Hong Kong. So we have achieved a success. As for the number of enterprises, in fact, Invest Hong Kong every year would make the relevant announcement, and you may recall a rather robust growth. On reciprocal recognition, as mentioned for IP rights, is territorial in nature. We have different economies in the world, and in light of that, there are different legal systems. So for IP regimes, likewise, there are different approaches to registration or trading. So there is no concept of reciprocity. However, we do have facilitation measures for registration in the two places. As I mentioned, in 2023, for I&T enterprises or startups wishing to register the IP in the mainland, in terms of the trademark or patent, they are given priority. And in fact, starting from last year, a green channel has been set up for such work in Shenzhen, and we'll continue to explore more facilitation measures. Second question, I'll give the floor to the IRD. Yes, Ms. Chen, please. Thank you, Chairman. The member asked about measures to tackle tax evasion. Indeed, IP is a form of intangible asset. It's very easy for abuse to happen. So in relaxing the tax deduction requirements, we have some anti-abuse provisions, such as the main purpose test, or say if the IP rights are purchased from across the boundary, we require a third-party independent valuation report to be submitted. And for transfer of IPs from associates, we also impose a cap on the amount of tax deductions allowed. Well, the cost of purchasing the IP will be eligible for tax deduction, subject to a cap. And the cap means the IP transferor's share of tax deduction. And also, if there is value added as a result of IP-related R&D activities, then the R&D-related expenditure incurred will also be subject to tax deduction. And all these will be considered together in imposing the cap so as to prevent associates from looping the same IP within the group to claim excessive tax deduction. Next, Mr. Tommy Zhong. Thank you, Chair. IP trading in Hong Kong relies on communication between respective buyers before the trading. There is a lack of a centralized trading platform. For example, for the Asia IP platform run by the TDC, at the moment, most of the IPs to the film and TV industries. The platform provides simplified information sheets. That is, there is a website, but there is no real communication involved on this trading platform. In terms of patent, the Productivity Council runs the Technology and Innovation Support Center. But still, we need to apply in a paper form for a patent to for the patent service, indexing service. Now, in relation to IP financing, there is a sandbox to help with valuation. I'd like to know the way forward. Will a central platform be set up that will provide detailed information on valuation of patents so that eventually we can have a real trading platform? Secretary, thank you. Chair, thank you, member, for the questions. There is this Asia IP exchange portal run by the TDC. There is a website in relation to I&T, or rather creative work, and for the platform on I&T there are 28,000 items, and for the creative industries platform there are about 10,000 items. Now, the member suggested making the platform more interactive. I will bring this view back to the TDC for further consideration so that this platform can provide not only relevant contact information with our mainland and overseas counterpart, but also provide more functions to promote trading. I'll go back and discuss with the TDC. Now, on valuation, I think the member referred to the TISC, but on top of that, we are going to take forward a number of initiatives. For example, we are going to provide qualitative analysis service to patent or IP owners using the national standard, so that from a legal and, in fact, multiple perspectives, we can complete the valuation of the patent. As for a database, we'll go back and discuss with the member to see how we can take this forward. Next, Professor Michael Ngai. Thank you, Chair. According to the paper, from various perspectives such as human resources, IP trading, international cooperation, the government continues to take forward the establishment of an IP trading ecosystem. Well, I think this is visionary. I acknowledge the government's efforts. Now, the paper provides a number of proposals, such as the one in paragraph 23, allowing tax deduction of the cost of purchasing certain IPs from associates. That is, what is the objective criteria for determining whether the main purpose test is met. Now, in terms of cross-boundary trading, if there is a price departure from the independent third-party evaluation report, how would it be handled? On collaboration with the international community, the MOU has been signed with Cambodia and Malaysia, and there are also business matching activities in the Greater Bay Area. I'd like to know how many IP service providers have successfully tapped the mainland market or the ASEAN market. In the matching process, has the government identified any problems, and what are the solutions? Under Secretary. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Member, for the questions. Let me respond to the point on ASEAN countries. Every year, we have a flagship event called BIP Asia. And in fact, we've now added a new segment in relation to ASEAN, in relation to facilitation for a commercialization of patent of both enterprises in both places, and also facilitating commercialization of R&D results, enhancing collaboration, etc. We explored these issues in depth, and at the forum we also signed MOUs with Cambodia and Malaysia with a view to enhancing collaboration. Now, through our trading ties will continue to arrange for thematic visits, and in terms of IP, we will further explore whether there is room to organize more such visits. About the number of enterprises setting up presence in Hong Kong, as I mentioned, every year Invest Hong Kong makes the relevant announcements. I do not have the figures at hand. I'll see if we are able to provide these figures after the meeting. Any follow-up? No. Next member to speak, Mr. Hong Kam In. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Undersecretary, for walking us through the paper. The government is actively promoting Hong Kong as a regional IP trading hub. Now, about this consultation on broadening the scope of tax deduction, I welcome the legislative proposal, but I have 4 questions. First, about relaxing the requirement on tax deduction of the cost of purchasing IPs from associates. How do you make sure that the groups will not abuse the system, because we need to protect ourselves from tax evasion? The second point, according to paragraph 8 of the paper, the IP financing sandbox was rolled out in December 2025 and it's been up and running for 6 months. May I know more about the financing amount involved and participating enterprises? What is the participation rate for SMEs? The third point is, in fact, my concern is about the IP regime being too focused on patent. What about trademarks and designs? How will the SMEs get the support they need? The fourth point is that $28 million will be set aside for the valuation service of patent and $52 million for the setting up of the academy. Are there KPIs to make sure that the public money is well spent? Number of questions, Undersecretary. On IP financing sandbox, as I said in my opening remarks, we are fully aware of the plight facing the sectors. That is, for the largest portion of the intangible assets, including patent, copyright, trademark, etc., there is a problem of limited trading activities, lack of financial return, etc. So we try to tackle these problems. Last year, together with the Hong Kong MA, we rolled out the IP financing sandbox, incorporating the views of different stakeholders and enterprises. In a risk-controlled environment, participating banks and enterprises tried out the different IP financing arrangements. The 3 major banks in Hong Kong participate in the sandbox program, and these banks will also identify successful cases, and once an announcement is made, we'll also report the matter to the members. Now, about other forms of support for owners of other IP rights, such as trademark, etc. Now we have the pilot scheme, and we also set up the Technology and Innovation Support Center. We provide services covering different areas of IP, including patents, trademarks, and designs, etc. So it's a one-to-one advisory service that covers other owners of other IP rights.
Follow-up on tax revenue and the key performance indicator. I think those questions went unanswered. The IRD will take the questions. On tax revenue, under the prevailing Inland Revenue Ordinance, if a taxpayer buys IP from an associate, there is no tax deduction at the moment. Once we relax the rules for trading with an associate, there will be measures against tax evasion. Those have been covered in my earlier replies. There will be a cap on the cost of purchasing the IP right. That cap will be set at the tax deduction enjoyed by the seller for the same IP right. If there is R&D to add value to the IP right, the R&D expenses will be taken into account. This will guard against the cycling through of an IP right as a way to inflate the price, as a way to claim excessive tax deductions. On cross-boundary trading with associates, an independent third-party valuation report will be required so that we can tell whether the transaction price is on a par with the market price. Mr. Peter Xu, I support the proposed tax break and also the matching support as a way to turn Hong Kong into an IP trading center. In innovation and intellectual property, money is needed at an early stage to support the development of such assets. Businesses in this space struggle with financing, so the support scheme here will be a step in the right direction. Now, paragraph 11, patent valuation services, it's $80,000 one-on-one support. So when a business has a product at an early stage, there will be valuation, and so that the business can go ahead to look for investors or other financing channels. If a business forgoes this professional valuation and finds other sources of funding outside, what will be the government's position on that? Undersecretary. We work through the TISC, Technology and Innovation Support Center. So we have the 2-year pilot scheme. There's a matching grant for every dollar provided by the business. The government also provides an equal amount of support. That's for the business to engage an accountant or a surveyor to provide valuation for patent or other forms of intellectual property right. And that information would be a basis for banks to refer to. There's also a service offered by patent examiners under the Intellectual Property Department. For a business that has a patent that has undergone substantive assessment, we will provide a qualitative evaluation free of charge. That qualitative evaluation will be based on national standards. Along with the pilot scheme offering one-on-one support, information will be provided for financial institutions to offer financing. If businesses decide to forego our services, we'll see if there are other forms of support available. Of course, we encourage businesses to take advantage of our scheme. They can take advantage of the BUD Fund or the SME Financing Guarantee Scheme. My point is this. If a business comes up with a form of intellectual property and they skip this valuation support scheme, they find other investors through other channels, and that channel is not a bank, would there be regulation over such dealings? Those will be commercial decisions. For us, we simply provide support, so you leave them alone. For regulation, there may be regulations, some sort of ordinance, but then for the IRD, we simply provide support. The Undersecretary's point is that those activities may hinge on the industry-specific rules. I raised my question to make a point. There is talk think about the transactions involving antiquities. People launder money with the selling of antiques. It's hard to provide valuation. Once you trade and antiques, the money changes hand, and then after a while, the buyer realizes that antique is not what it is supposed to be. I support this proposal about intellectual property rights, but you have to be mindful of the pros and cons of everything. People can exploit a loophole. An IP right may be worth any amount of money. Once there is a transaction, there may be money laundering. It's a commercial activity after all. We simply have to be mindful of this potential loophole in the future. Undersecretary, we will be prudent. For this pilot valuation scheme involving patents or other forms of intellectual property rights, we do have some background information to go on. We have the experience. We can more or less tell the market price. On people in the industry exploiting the loopholes for non-compliant or even illicit activities, we will approach such matters with caution. Mr. Dennis Low. Hong Kong is developing into a regional IP trading center. We are improving our taxation policies, enforcement, training of talent, and fostering transactions. I support legislative amendments to speed up development on this front. Paragraph 6 says, in July 2024, the patent box was launched. In the 2023-24, $360 million in profits qualified, and that led to tax savings of roughly $41 million. How many businesses were covered? Were there local startups or SMEs among those companies? Does the patent box scheme only focus on INT firms? Will we expand the scope of the patent box? The paper also mentions the TISC. There will be a 2-year pilot valuation support scheme with a matching grant on a 1-to-1 basis. Each business will get $80,000. What will be the accreditation requirements for these valuation service providers? Will successful applicants be required to submit the valuation report by a certain deadline? That's to ensure proper use of public funds. So 2 questions, patent box and the pilot scheme. For the patent box, the tax rate will go down to 5% from 16.5% for profits arising from R&D. That scheme was launched a short while ago. Just a dozen of businesses have benefited from the scheme. We will continue to promote the schemes among INT companies and SMEs. We will also promote the scheme through our overseas trade and commerce express network. Multinationals are also considering Hong Kong because of our patent box. Invest Hong Kong will also share such details. The patent box is about output. On input, which means R&D, the ITIB, Innovation Technology and Industry Bureau, also has their own concessionary measures. So we have tax breaks on the input side and on the output side, so that's attractive to investors. What about the implementation of the scheme? The pilot scheme is there to support businesses in engaging professional services for valuation. Those professionals have to abide by their industry code of conduct and guidelines in performing their work, meaning valuation, and they have to be mindful of their own liability issues. So we leave that to the market. Our role is to provide the support. All good? Dr. Simon Lee. My question is similar to that raised by Mr. Peter Xu. I'm looking at paragraph 23A. It's about the capital expenditure and tax break. There is a main purpose test. This test targets illicit transactions, but I want to dig deeper. What criteria or considerations do we adopt to determine whether something amounts to abuse? A company is not going to tell you that they are doing something for tax evasion after all. In nearby economies, they do not adopt the main purpose test. When we have this requirement, what would that mean for our competitiveness? I also have a few points to make. We support this proposal. We welcome this change. Hong Kong has what it takes to move ahead. We need a secondary market. Without that, you cannot address the problem with financing. The trading ecosystem is also weak. We don't have a high-frequency trading system. You don't have a patent pool. And then there are also barriers arising from differences in cross-boundary trading. So what can we do about the ownership issues and reciprocal enforcement as well as criteria? So those are my questions and the points I want to make. Undersecretary. I will say a few words and then maybe my colleagues will have something to say. On the main purpose test, overseas and in the context of avoidance of double taxation agreements, this main purpose test is common practice. Other economies also adopt the same test. We adopt this test for other tax breaks. Our officers have experience in applying the test on reciprocal recognition and valuation. Intellectual property is a form of intangible asset. The struggle with the financing is the lack of trading volume, the lack of promotion, the lack of case scenarios. That's why the government launches pilot schemes under the TISC. We provide services. One of our purposes is to get more professionals and businesses to leverage our platform so that we can promote more transactions. Once you have the trading volume, the valuation will be able to generate greater buy-in from the market. We will continue the work on this front. We're almost out of time for this session. Two members wish to ask follow-up questions. Let's do 2 minutes for each member. Dr. Webster. I'm looking at paragraph 26C. There's a discrepancy in the wording in the Chinese and English version. So the deeming provision is that such income will be taxable and there's no evasion. So that means legitimate capital expenses will be taxable, and that goes against the tax neutrality principle. This would discourage investment. If the government proposes such a provision, I would take issue with it. Now, paragraph 30, my question went unanswered. What is the proportionate basis? Will this be written into the DIPN?
From the ILD, please. About the deeming provision, we want to provide greater clarity. It doesn't broaden the scope of the tax to be charged, because for businesses in Hong Kong, if license is granted to a Hong Kong enterprise or a user in Hong Kong to use such IP, then it's regarded as operating income and not capital revenue. And in fact, we've come across some disputes. The Patrick Cox case, in fact, illustrated the upfront licensing fees that is to be regarded as the operating income nature. So we need to consider the nature of businesses, the form of business of the enterprise. The deeming provision is put in place to avoid future disputes. Anything else? DIPN 30, section 30, paragraph 30, about the proportionate basis for charging tax. Guidance materials will be promulgated to illustrate how tax deduction will take place on a proportionate basis. Right. Do consider the members' views whether to include this in the principal legislation as well. Final member to speak, Mr. Hong Kam In. Thank you for allowing me to ask this follow-up question. For the sandbox program, it's been 6 months, and I haven't heard any successful case. Now, are there difficulties? Is there a way to solve the difficulties? Has it to do with banks or lack of IP trading? Now, the purpose of setting up the IP financing sandbox is to provide a risk-controlled environment. And in this environment, participants such as banks, IP owners, and valuation practitioners will put their heads together and find out how we solve the pain points on this platform. In terms of IP financing, indeed, as mentioned, there are lots of pain points. So in the course of IP financing arrangements, we want to be able to incorporate those in the best practices so that we learn from the practical experience and start with a small-scale operation. We draw up the guidelines, and then we allow the I&T sector to take the lead and then see whether we have the prerequisite to apply to other sectors. It's still in its trial process. The sandbox program allows 3 major banks to negotiate IP financing arrangements with 12 to 20 enterprises. As mentioned, we want to accumulate practical experience so that under this pilot approach we can draw up the best practices in the future. Thank you. The government plans to submit the relevant legislative proposal into LegCo within 2026. So members of this panel, any views? All agree? Right. So this will be further handled by the Council. The next item, thank you for attending. Next item. Item 4, latest development of the San Tin Technopole. The CDB team may be excused, and we will now wait for the ITIB team to come. Let's invite the administration to come inside. Members, if you want to speak, please press the request to speak button now. Let me welcome Professor Sun Dong, Secretary for Innovation, Technology and Industry, to our meeting, Mr. Gordon Chong, Deputy Secretary, and his team to our meeting. Let's wait till the Secretary has settled down and then please walk us through the paper. Chairman, members. The development of the Northern Metropolis and also the Hetao Shenzhen Hong Kong Science Technology Innovation Cooperation Zone is an important measure for the government to support I&T development. Now, the government is proactively developing Northern Metropolis as an international I&T sector under this new layout of South-North dual engine. This will further align Hong Kong with other Greater Bay Area cities and promote synergistic industrial development. Now, the San Tin Technopole involves 210 hectares of new I&T land in the northern side, together with 87 hectares of land in the Loop Hong Kong Park. There will be altogether 300 hectares of land on a par with the Shenzhen Park. The ITIB in November last year promulgated a conceptual development plan. According to this conceptual outline, there is a clear development strategy that is to promote up, mid, downstream synergistic development in the San Tin Technopole to improve the industrial ecosystem. Now, there will be focus on prototyping, pilot production, small-scale manufacturing. In order to promote the development of San Tin Technopole, the government announced in Budget 2026-27 that a dedicated company for the San Tin Technopole will be set up with an injection of $10 billion as the initial capital, and there will also be will also leverage market resources to accelerate the progress. The bureau will seek approval from the financial sector to incorporate a non-statutory limited company wholly owned by the financial secretary incorporated called the San Tin Technopole Company. This will be, the board will be appointed by the government, and the CEO likewise will also be appointed by the government. The board will comprise chairman, official directors, non-official directors, who include government officials, and they will make sure that the development of the San Tin Technopole will be in line with the overall development direction of Hong Kong. As for the initial capital of $10 billion, that will be spent on cooperating with the operating company, and we'll look for investors so that taking a joint venture approach will find the most suitable development option to ease the burden of the public coffers. We'll also leverage on the private market so as to expedite this development. Part of the funds will be used to support its initial operation and to attract potential I&T startups to set up presence there. We will submit the funding application with LegCo on the injection of $10 billion, and the ITIB is also actively preparing for the launch of a series of measures to complete the incorporation of this company and also forming the establishment. Our goal is to commission this company within this year. The San Tin Technopole involves a very large piece of land, and we need to take an orderly and progressive approach. 20 hectares of land will be rolled out in phases in 2026-27, and there will also be different phases, different concepts adopted for the I&T land in the San Tin Technopole. Now, it carries a major mission, and it is an important mission for promoting I&T development in Hong Kong and in Greater Bay Area. It is also a very important element in the future I&T development of Hong Kong to promote new quality productive forces. I believe that with your support, we will be able to pull together global I&T talents and develop new quality productive forces. I would be happy to take questions from members. Thank you, Professor Sun. I see 10 members have signed up to speak. I'll give each member 3 minutes to speak for the first round. Questions and answer. Let me read out the names: Jimmy Ng, Sunny Tan, Moon Kit, Hong Kam In, Yeo Ming, Michael Ngai, Andrew Yao, Alan Chan, Thomas So, Dennis Leung. Starting with Mr. Jimmy Ng. Thank you, Chair. I have a very straightforward question. One of the major position of the San Tin Technopole is to provide space for prototyping, pilot production, and small-scale manufacturing. According to the paper, the Hong Kong Park, or the HSITP Corporation, is now conducting a planning study on the 20 hectares of land of San Tin Technopole. Now, for this site, how much in terms of percentage of land will be used for the above uses? Secretary. Well, the use of the 20 hectares of land is now being considered. We have got in touch with a lot of enterprises, including global major corporations with greater demand for land. Now, I think that to give you a clear answer, starting from 2027, we will first provide 2 to 3 hectares of land. And the dedicated company for the San Tin Technopole will strive to set up an office for its operation on the 2 to 3 hectares of land. As the things are still evolving, we need to wait for the dedicated company to be established first, and by then we'll give an account on how we should use the 20 hectares of land. Now, of course, there is also the development of the northern metropolis, and the technologies are rapidly evolving, so we need to consider not only the 20 hectares of land, but other sites as well. That is, in order to expedite the development, we need to consider what approach to be taken to support, say, development of the university town, the technopole, etc. We're in the process of drawing up the first 5-year plan, and today's discussion is about the conceptual outline for the development of the San Tin Technopole. And last November, we promulgated the conceptual outline for the San Tin Technopole, but of course, we're also considering the first 5-year plan, and there may be some adjustments to this conceptual outline in the course. Thank you. Next, Dr. Sunny Tan. Thank you, Chairman. I support the overall development of the San Tin Technopole. According to the website, the first batch of I&T enterprises will set a presence there as early as 2031. The Secretary just now mentioned some tasks currently being undertaken by the company. We understand the development of the San Tin Technopole in general, and that many enterprises have expressed interest, according to the Secretary. It's still some time until 2031, and I am all for clusters, and I believe that when it comes to I&T, there will be different types of innovation technologies involved. So I'd like to have the Secretary's view on the following. That is, how can the Science Park or other relevant organizations better support the government in this regard, so that before 2031 we'll be fully prepared, and that we will allow more enterprises to first set up presence on a temporary basis somewhere, and then when San Tin Technopole is ready, we can then allow them to go full throttle. Secretary, well, Dr. Tan has asked a very good question. This conceptual plan sets out the development in the coming 10 years. In fact, it takes 8 to 10 years to launch the sites, but it's not up to the ITIB. In some cases, we do hope that sites will be ready as quickly as possible. That is, some government departments will be responsible for resuming the sites, and then they can actually pass them along for us to explore different means to expedite development of the San Tin Technopole. This is the position of the ITIB. However, we also need to follow the plan. We are also very anxious. We are trying to adopt different means to expedite the development. But of course, the government should also enhance coordination. Now, at least there should be 10, 20 hectares of land ready. Now, our advantage lies in Hetao, San Tin Technopole, and Loop. They will become the 3 major parks to realize the development of up, mid, and downstream. And we are expediting the development of San Tin Technopole and Hetao in general. In fact, for Hetao, the first 8 buildings will be commissioned by the end of this year. And upon completion of construction, they'll be commissioned immediately. As for the remaining parcels in the first phase, next month we'll also roll out some sites for tendering. By the 30th of June next year, we plan to at least hold 3 tendering exercises to speed things up, so that by adopting this expeditious model, we can more or less make up for the time that we've been waiting for the development of San Tin Technopole. It's very difficult.
Mr. Monkit, paragraph 9 of the paper says that the government hopes the San Tin Technopole, the Loop, and the Shenzhen Park can form this pattern of one river, two banks, and one park, two zones. The Loop is supposed to be a demonstration zone of institutional innovation. The ITIB is striving for the cross-boundary flow of factors of production for INT. For tech talent and experts, can we achieve groundbreaking facilitation services for them? For workers at the park, can we have tax breaks, a white list, and express corridor, or reciprocal recognition of tech credentials for them? How will the ITIB make the most of the midstream and downstream talent pool of Shenzhen, which can be a way for us to mitigate our shortage of such talent? Secretary. Both the Loop and San Tin will be key to Hong Kong's participation in the GBA's development. Hong Kong will have to work with Shenzhen and other mainland cities of the GBA. That will be a prerequisite for any success. For the Loop, we have specific plans for the cross-boundary flow of the 4 factors of production. We're waiting for the mainland's approval. For that process to work, the cooperation between Hong Kong and Shenzhen will be important. So we already have a branch of the Science Park in Shenzhen's part of the Loop. Shenzhen will also have their own base in the Hong Kong Park in the Loop. These 2 branches will be functionally similar. These 2 branches will complement each other. The San Tin Technopole will be a natural extension of the Loop. The location matters. The Loop and San Tin will also complement each other in terms of industries. The San Tin Technopole can also attract R&D outcomes and tech businesses from the mainland. We welcome talent and businesses from the mainland to come to the San Tin Technopole. Next, Mr. Hong Kam In. We can see the enthusiasm and also the anxiety for progress from the Secretary. Since I became a LegCo member on at least 10 occasions, I have seen this push to get the Northern Metropolis going. For the Loop and the San Tin Technopole, everyone wants to see progress, but people also have a concern. They want to go fast, but we cannot provide enough land for them. So that's a cause for concern. For the San Tin Technopole, the government will provide 210 hectares of land. $10 billion will be provided. For this board of the corporation, and also the operation of this corporation, do we have a timeline for that? And for the CEO and the senior management, will LegCo exercise oversight over the pay for such senior management? On land resumption and the infrastructure, can those factors keep up with the industry park's future development? Can we have details on that? So what will the transport infrastructure look like? There will be a piece of dedicated legislation for the Northern Metropolis. On land approval for the San Tin Technopole and financing, what sorts of safeguards can we expect from this future legislation? Secretary. On the board of directors, it's part of the management structure. The members of the board and the chief executive officers will be appointed by the government. The board, including its chairperson and all the official and non-official directors, the official members will cover the permanent secretary for innovation, technology, and industry, the permanent secretary for financial services and the treasury, and also the commissioner for innovation and technology. On a need basis, other government officials may attend the meetings. These official directors will be a way for the government to take part in the major decision-making of the company. The non-official members will be people from different sectors. That's how we can hear from other sides. The preliminary plan is to appoint 6 non-official directors from different disciplines. Soon, we will announce the list of directors for the San Tin Technopole company. On land, which is top of mind for many, the ITIB will work with other government departments to make sure that we make available the land as soon as we can. Transport is also top of mind for people. The Northern Metropolis Coordination Office and the Transport and Logistics Bureau have discussed this matter. The San Tin Technopole will be 210 hectares. There are 3 zones and 3 corridors. 3 zones meaning the Chao Tao, Keilun, and San Tin. Some locations are easier to access near the train station. Transport infrastructure projects are also underway, so that the San Tin Technopole and the loop will become easier to access. On the third point, what was that? Land resumption. That's under the purview of the Development Bureau. On an appropriate occasion, Mr. Hong can talk to that bureau. For us, we're also in touch with that bureau. It will take time for the land to come on stream. That may have to do with issues in land resumption, but different departments will work together to make available the land as soon as we can. Thank you. Mr. Yu Meng, I welcome the proposal about the San Tin Technopole. We have to achieve better and faster results. Once the Technopole is there, that will provide jobs for residents in New Territories North. There are different corporations for the different tech parks. We will have one for Hongshui Q, another one for the Hong Kong Science and Technology Corporation. So how do we coordinate different tech industry parks? How do we get the tech investment attraction right instead of having some sort of competition? So how will these tech parks achieve differential development? For the San Tin Technopole, there are different forms of cooperation in the development of the park. Will we give priority to leading tech firms? We've heard that Hongqi takes an interest in the area. We still have land to resume, that is private land. Can the private landowners do something about their land? So you don't have to resume the land. We can work with the private landowners. We can allow private landowners to pursue I&T development on their own land, and that may speed up the entry of tech firms. Can we pursue that approach? Secretary. On differential development, as I've said time and again, the San Tin Technopole has a consistent and clear positioning. Back in 2021, the government proposed the San Tin Technopole, albeit at a smaller scale. The focus is on I&T firms. After COVID, we put the Technopole on the agenda again. Now the scale is 210 hectares, which is bigger. 200 hectares plus the 87 hectares in the loop. Altogether, you have almost 300 hectares. So that's on a similar scale with the Shenzhen Park in the loop. So that's what we are achieving here. We have started consultancy studies starting from 2022, and then in 2025, in November last year, we released the conceptual outline of the development plan. So the strategy, the spatial planning, everything is discussed in this conceptual outline. The San Tin Technopole will complement the loop. The loop will focus on the midstream and medium stream, whereas the San Tin Technopole will focus on the midstream and the downstream. We want the San Tin Technopole to be a key area for our I&T development. We do well at the upstream, we're doing fine at the midstream, but in the medium to downstream, we're struggling because of a shortage of land. The San Tin Technopole will support I&T firms by offering the space. So that's the positioning, and that's clear. The San Tin Technopole and the loop differ from the science park. They also differ from Cyberport. I have discussed the differences on multiple occasions, so I don't propose to go through those points again. On the second point, the San Tin Technopole's development. We are pragmatic. If a leading tech firm wants to invest here, we welcome that. Even for tech firms that are not leading players, as long as they invest money here, we welcome them as well. That's why we're trying to form the San Tin Technopole Corporation soon so that it can become operational soon. Some preparatory teams are already hard at work with the assistance of the team land. What about private landowner? Can we work with private landowners? This is clearly discussed in the conceptual outline. For any country, any region, they build industry parks to make it easier to coordinate development and implement projects. And that's also a way to guard against making everything real estate project. That's why in the mainland and also in Singapore, the government takes the lead in industry parks for technology development. Over here, we take a multi-pronged approach, and this is clearly set out in the conceptual plan. The industry park is welcome to work with private sector players in different forms of partnerships. They can do joint investments. They can do develop and transfer. The government keeps an open mind about the approach. Most of the money in the San Tin Technopole will come from the industry. The government invests only a finite sum in that. That's why we keep an open mind. Mr. Yu is also welcome to introduce more market players to the government so that we can achieve faster, better results with the technical.
Professor Michael Ngai. The paper referred to the full commissioning of the San Tin Technopole, and after its commissioning, it is expected to bring $250 billion worth of GDP to Hong Kong and create 300,000 jobs. I'd like the administration to explain the basis and the assumptions adopted in preparing this estimate. Now, comparing to the science park and the GDP per hectare, the number of jobs, are we being too optimistic? Can you also give us some reference figures for similar parks in the world? And Annex 3 refers to land resumption, which started in 2025, involving 1.65 million square meters of GFA, and for phase 4 or stage 4 of phase 1 and phase 2, this will begin in 2026, the earliest. And according to the paper, adjustments will be made to the timetable subject to the progress. So in terms of land resumption, if things are not as ideal, is there any backup plan? Thank you, Professor Ngai, for the question. To answer your question, I'll give the floor to Mr. Gordon Zhang. About the estimates of economic benefits to be brought about by the San Tin Technopole, in preparing this document, we engaged consultant, and upon full operation of the facility, it will bring $250 billion worth of GDP contribution, comprising 3 aspects: direct, indirect, and ancillary. For direct benefits, we're talking about the gross floor area involving R&D, talent accommodation, pilot testing, and then we consider the population density, as well as industrial output in drawing up the direct contribution. The other aspect is indirect contribution. Now, after the enterprises set up presence in San Tin Technopole, they will need professional services such as logistics, accounting, financial services, and the related tech sectors will come in. That means that the indirect benefits will be brought to other economic sectors. About other ancillary contribution, we're talking about, say, accommodation needs to be met after, say, foreign staff come to Hong Kong to settle down. This will also bring about other forms of contribution. So this is how the consultant has come by the estimates for San Tin Technopole. Of course, these are preliminary estimates. Upon establishment of the San Tin Technopole Company Limited, we will ask the CEO to prepare the latest round of estimates in light of the latest development and the land supply. Now, the member also asked about the economic value to be brought about by the science park. On an annual basis, it's about $15 billion. But size-wise, San Tin Technopole is in fact equivalent to the size of 10 science parks. And we're talking about a particular focus on high-tech development. So on the whole, we do expect the value to be even more. Now, in fact, the science park does not adopt the same development approach as San Tin Technopole. The San Tin Technopole is a base for innovation, technology, and R&D. It's a very important platform, and that's also the incubator for startups. And that's the positioning of the science park. It's been years since its establishment, so naturally we consider its contribution to GDP as a major indicator. Now, the relevant departments are now drawing up KPIs so as to present a clearer picture of the science park's contribution over the past 20 years to our economy. To answer Professor Ngai's second question, I think members are concerned about the speed of development and the time frame for putting up the sites for tender. Now, we're not too concerned. In fact, a few weeks ago, for the remaining land and in the first batch of the loop, the CN Council gave approval. So, tendering exercise was immediately held. We're not talking about just a couple of sites. we want to expedite the progress. Say we have 10 hectares of land for Sandy Ridge. And now we don't want to focus on I&T only because 2 hectares are not sufficient. So we added another 9 hectares, altogether 11 hectares. And then we got the approval in August, September last year. We streamlined the procedures and we started tendering right away in October. Now, we've reached the construction stage. That's the speed of development. We believe that we will be able to achieve a staggering speed if we're able to work together. And there are also 5 buildings in the loop that can be completed within 2 years. And just slightly less than 2 years, we're able to complete the construction of 5 buildings. That's the speed of Hong Kong. So do have confidence in us. Mr. Andrew Yao. Thank you. Well, for San Tin Technopole, I think that all stars are aligned. We have all the prerequisites. We also have the support of our country and the efforts made by the SAR government. And we're also in this geopolitical situation. I'm sure that we're going to excel. This will help us transform under the new industrial pattern of South-North dual engine. And in the course, you must be able to tackle challenges. I hope that you will soldier on. I'd like to share my insight with you. I've been in the industrial sector for decades, and I've also been involved in industrial park and industrial fund. And I think that we need all 3 major elements in order to build this ecosystem. And that is, we need the industries, the industrial park, and the fund. I think some funds should be set aside from the $10 billion sum so as to provide flexibility. The whole sum should not just go to the dedicated company. The next point is that I think according to the preliminary report, things are looking well, especially in terms of life tech, AI, microelectronics, advanced manufacturing. The company we set up in a few months, I think that when it comes to the latest 15 key fields, there are 109 major projects to a tune of $100 billion investment. I think we can have regard to the latest battery invention, low altitude devices, green energy, satellites, satellite communication, data infrastructure, carbon emission, etc. Coming back to my last point, when it comes to the recruitment and appointment of the CEO and their team, it's something very crucial. There should be an appropriate mechanism to ensure that those with merits will get paid more. Well, thank you for the 3 suggestions about the $10 billion fund set aside. I think 70% to 80%, and that's a major portion, will be used to promote joint venture projects. That is, for enterprises with potential, we want to enlist their support, and maybe they can get some shares as part of the investment. It may be difficult for them to fund the whole project if they're to go ahead independently. And by then, we can consider providing some support. And that's the crux of the work of this company. About 70–80% of the $10 billion initial capital will be used for this purpose. The second point is about the major projects. Now, we have a team that have been sparing no effort, as you can see. The ITIB has made a lot of efforts in attracting businesses, and we have completed close to 700 projects. Many of them are standing projects and enterprises have already established presence. As far as the enterprises are concerned, they need to set up a presence here. That means they need to set up an office. They need to put in real money for the investment. And it's totally different if they are to set up a production line here, not just an office. So we need to lower the cost of development. Land cost is one factor. The construction costs remain on the high side. We also have other supporting facilities. We trying to revitalize the industrial scene in Hong Kong. So it will take some time for all these facilities to be provided, but I have every confidence that will be able to achieve all these. And about the recruitment of the CEO, upon formation of the board of directors of the dedicated company, will start the recruitment exercise. Now, for Mr. Yao and other members here, if you have recommendations, do tell us. Next, Dr. Thomas So. Thank you, Chair. I fully support the development of the San Tin Technopole, its conceptual outline, as well as the development of the Northern Metropolis. Secretary for Development mentioned that these 3 industrial zones have different positionings. The Loop is responsible for frontier technology. San Tin Technopole is responsible for pilot production, prototyping, and Hongshui Q will be responsible for manufacturing, logistics. Now, I'm concerned about this dedicated company for the San Tin Technopole. Will there be an innovative arrangement as far as its income is concerned that is different from the companies for other parks? Now, I'm involved in supporting the promotion of Northern Metropolis to the sector, and that is my professional sector, such as and the legal profession. Now, I know that there are different promotion strategies for different parks. About the Loop, San Tin, and Hongshui Q, as well as the Northern Metropolis, can you tell us more about the strategy to publicize the differential development, how they can give play to their unique positions? Because I don't think the market has received a clear signal as to the delineation of work among these facilities. Northern Metropolis may be more familiar to the market, but then in fact there are different precincts and industrial zones. So how do they create synergy? I want to know from the administration whether there is a clear plan to publicize these messages. Secretary, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dr. Thomas. So we have put forward the idea of South-North dual engine, that is finance and I&T, as well as the Northern Metropolis University Town. Now, we adopt a consistent approach. Our stance remains clear, as I emphasized in answering other members' questions. The Loop is, overall speaking, the park. It doesn't conflict with San Tin Technopole. We also adopt some innovative thinking because the San Tin Technopole is a natural extension of the Loop. So you can call it the Big Loop, counting San Tin Technopole together. Together with San Tin Technopole, the park spans almost roughly the same size as the Shenzhen Park across the river. And this is of strategic value. It is a major platform for realizing development in the Greater Bay Area. I don't think there should be any doubt about that. It involves up, mid, and downstream development. As for Sandy Ridge, now originally we set aside 2 hectares. Now it's become 11 hectares. Again, the positioning is very clear. We create this park to develop Hong Kong into an international data hub with some state-of-the-art computing power. So again, the positioning is very clear. These parks have different positions that are very clear. They don't conflict with each other. Mr. Dennis Lau. Thank you, Chair. To support our country's development under the 15th Five-Year Plan and to promote the development of new quality productive forces, the Northern Metropolis will be the core of the driver in Hong Kong. So the Development Bureau is now actively taking forward a dedicated legislation for the development of Northern Metropolis. The ITIB has drawn up a blueprint and an action plan. So these complement each other. But more importantly, a dedicated company will be set up to support the development and expedite this progress. But I'm concerned about what happens later. That is, upon commissioning of the facilities, how do we realize the vision of collaboration between among the government, industry, academic, and R&D? Recently, I visited Fuzhou, and there is this tech university there. They have adopted an integrated development approach on R&D. Now, Secretary used to work in a university. I'm sure he knows well about the overall institution, R&D, and he's familiar with how the funds operate. So how do we make sure that R&D activities in universities can be commercialized? So in the future, what measures we put in place in collaboration with the Education Bureau so that upon commissioning of the Northern Metropolis, R&D activities in universities can be commercialized? Is there any plan to expand the efforts?
Thank you. Mr. Leung's long-standing concern is how we translate R&D outcomes into commercialized product. I'm on board with Mr. Leung. For 4 years, our I&T policy has been coordination across the upstream, midstream, and downstream sectors, with focus on transformation. Without the transformation, there is no downstream development. Without the transformation, there is no revenue, and there will be no contribution to Hong Kong's GDP. Without revenue, there is no support for upstream research, so that's the underlying logic. There has been a huge change in Hong Kong's universities. A few years ago, we flipped the share of income arising from intellectual property rights for universities and research outfits. It used to be 70-30, 70 for universities and 30 to research. Now it's flipped. Now universities embrace our initiatives. We also give $15 million to the Technology Transfer Office of each university. That's to encourage transformation of R&D outcomes. We also have another $15 million to universities. That's to encourage their young researchers to commercialize their product. For the Northern Metropolis, the Unitown in the Northern Metropolis will have a role to play. The San Tin Technopole can go hand in hand with the Unitown. The Unitown can nurture talent. Tech firms supported by universities and their research teams can also team up with different stakeholders. So at the San Tin Technopole, you will see a healthy ecosystem. Universities can get involved, and that will speed up the Northern Metropolis. In the mainland, there are many success stories. The same goes for overseas experience. Boston has Harvard, MIT, and another university. Other places also have their tech hubs centered on universities. In Tsinghua University and Peking University, it's the same story with Beijing. So in the San Tin Technopole, there may be new developments. So that's my reply to the members. I have some questions of my own. I thank the Secretary for driving the INT development of the Northern Metropolis over the years. The Northern Metropolis is now elevated to a task of national importance under the 15th Five-Year Plan. It's rare to see a local project feature in a national blueprint. The San Tin Technopole will have a key role to play. It's a large area. I am fully confident, based on the Secretary's words, we have the land, we are working to attract investment. The ITIB shows great efficiency, so I commend the Bureau's effort. Now, I do have something to say. We have different industry corporations, each getting $10 billion. The loop is already operational, and then in Hongshui Q, they will also hire people and build their team. The remuneration packages will have to be competitive enough for these industry corporations. To get work done, the team matters. So can we do performance-linked packages? So that's something for the government to consider. We have to think outside the box. We cannot be held back by existing frameworks. We're putting public money into these industry park corporations. We will need transparency from these corporations so that we can be assured that the public money that is spent generates value for the community as a whole. So that's my point. Secretary, it's up to you whether to give a reply. Thank you. We are thinking about the same point. We now have 3 parks and 5 research institutions. That's our fundamental pattern. We have the institutions. The next step is to get the people. So we need top-notch talent to join us. Take the San Tin Technopole. We will have to start hiring. And it's not just the San Tin Technopole. The Hong Kong AIA Research and Technology Center, the Life and Health Technology Research Institute, they are all hiring their CEO. We have to hire locally, and we also have to look to the mainland and overseas to get hold of high-caliber talent to join us. So once again, I call on Legislative Council members to recommend outstanding people to us so that we can deliver results for Hong Kong's INT development. So that concludes the questions and answers session today. I thank the Secretary for joining us today. So this concludes the session. Next item, any other business? No other business for today. I adjourn the meeting. Thank you.